Hi, I'm Larry Richardson, your step-by-step chef. In this episode, we're going to make a delicious baked stuffed pork chop. Now, these pork chops are boneless pork chops, and I'm telling you, you put some delicious herb stuffing, homemade herb stuffing, on the top of them, and you're going to have a dish that nobody is not going to like. Everyone's absolutely going to love it. So come on, let's cook. Okay, so here are the ingredients for our baked stuffed pork chops. First, we're going to want 3 boneless pork chops. These are about 1 inch to 1.5 inches thick, and again, they have no bones. So it is pork and it tastes delicious, but get the boneless pork chops 1 inch or more thick. Next, we're going to have 3 pieces of toasted bread. There are 2 pieces of farmhouse white bread there and 1 piece of honey wheat. And as you can see, they are very well toasted. So since we're making breadcrumbs, you do want to toast them ahead of time. We're also going to use a tablespoon of fresh rosemary, a tablespoon of fresh oregano, and 2 tablespoons of fresh parsley. Now, if you can't get fresh herbs, then certainly feel free to use a tablespoon of dried Italian seasonings and see how it tastes. Now, you may want to add another teaspoon or so, but just be careful not to go overboard because those dried seasonings are extremely potent. Next up, we have our 3 cloves of garlic. We're going to crush that. We're going to use a 1/4 cup of sweet onion. We're going to mince that. 1 celery stalk, that's going to be minced, a sprinkling of black pepper, 1 teaspoon of salt, 2 tablespoons of butter, which we're going to melt, a 1/4 cup of chicken broth, and we're also going to use canola spray, which we're going to coat our pan with so all of this doesn't stick to it. So let me show you how to put this together. So here we are, we have all the ingredients ready to be processed. Now the first thing you want to do though is preheat your oven at 400 with the rack in the middle. So you can do that right now. Get that started so it's fully preheated by the time we have all of the stuffing ready. So what I want to start with is I'm going to crush our garlic. Now if you don't have a crusher, then certainly feel free to mince your garlic. Just mince it down and that'll be fine. Just make sure it's very small pieces, and you might even want to give it a little bit of a tap on the top to make sure that all the flavor comes out of that garlic. So you can see I'm using my handy dandy crusher, which does a great job of just bringing out all of the flavor and oils in the garlic. I always like to check it and make sure that I get all the little pieces, and I'm discarding the paper from the garlic. So there's our garlic, and as usual, if you are a garlic hound, you can add more, and if you don't like garlic, you can add less or leave it out altogether. It's totally up to you. I love when you guys take these recipes and you make them your own. The next thing I want to do is mince up our celery. So first I'm going to cut it lengthwise. I want nice little bite-sized pieces. And then we're just going to give it a nice chop. And you can make the pieces even smaller if you want. I like this as kind of a hearty stuffing. And also these pieces are going to bake for 40 minutes, so I don't really worry about making them too tiny because everything's going to shrink as it cooks. And there we go. And now let's transfer the celery into the bowl. Okay, so now we're going to cut our onion into nice little minced pieces. You don't want big chunks of onion in your stuffing. So I'm just scoring the top of the onion in one direction with the lines really close to each other. And then I'm going to score it in the other direction. There we go. And then I just cut down the face. And these are nice, tiny pieces of onion. And again, we want about 1/4 cup. Anything more than that would be overkill. And I'm just putting this right into right into our bowl. And there we go. Okay. And now what I'm going to do is I have this very inexpensive food processor that works with one of these handles. People buy these to make, smoothies with. And it's just kind of a very general mixer, very affordable. If you can't get one of these to mix up the breadcrumbs with the herbs, then what you'll probably want to do is just cut everything really tiny. But I'm going to use this food processor. And I'll show you how to do this right now. So again, this bread was toasted in advance. It's also had a chance to chill down. I find that when you cut the bread and it's hot, then it tends to stick to the knife and it gets kind of messy. But you can see I'm already able to cut this into really small strips. And I'm going to do it in one direction and then in the other direction. Okay, so that's the one direction. And here comes the other direction. And what I'm doing is I'm making really tiny cubes. And again, these cubes are so small that you might not even need to use a food processor at all. I like to because it just tends to do a good job of combining the herbs with the breadcrumbs, but it's totally up to you. And I just want to take the breadcrumbs and put them right into the food processor. I mean, a lot of the commercial stuffings, this is the size of the pieces that you get with your store-bought breadcrumbs. And you know, I'm using 2 pieces of white and 1 piece of wheat. And you can experiment. If you want to try something really crazy, I mean, you can use, rye or pumpernickel. I mean, anything that you want that gives it the taste that you want. So that's the fun of cooking, is experimenting and making it your own. I'm just giving you a very basic recipe that I enjoy, and then you can go and make it your own. Okay, so just put those in the food processor. And I actually think that's enough. I just filled up my food processor. So now what I'm going to do is prepare the herbs. Okay, so now we have our rosemary, our oregano, and our parsley. Again, if you can't get fresh in your area, feel free to use a tablespoon of dried Italian seasonings. I would not add too much more than that because it's very potent. But you can kind of, there's nothing dangerous in this mix. So you can kind of give it a little bit of taste after we combine everything in the bowl and see if it's spicy enough for you. If it isn't, then you're certainly welcome to add a 2nd teaspoon or so of the dried seasonings. Or if you're using the fresh seasonings, you can add more of this too. It's just totally up to your taste. And that's really what we're shooting for. I mean, there are certainly people out there who think there's only one way to prepare a meal, and it's their way. And they all have these very rigid ideas. But actually, I like to shoot for what tastes good. What tastes good to me, what tastes good to my family, what tastes good to my guests. That's what I'm shooting for. And I honestly can't say what tastes good to you. Some people like spicy food, some people don't. I do like spicy food. So even though I like spicy food, I'm staying a little bit conservative with this dish. But, that's mainly because I'm sharing it with you. But you're more than welcome to adjust it, add something. You could even add sage if you wanted to, if you want more of that Thanksgiving-y taste to your pork chop dish. Add some sage. Add like a 1/4 teaspoon of sage to it and see what that does. But mainly, I just want it to taste good to you. And give it a shot my way the first time, and then the next time you make it, go to town. Do it your way. So you can see I'm picking the leaves off of this parsley and off of the oregano. Sometimes you get parsley that is so rich that you can literally slice the ends off and you end up with enough parsley. This is not one of those plants. So I'm kind of cleaning the leaves off. I don't want a lot of stem in this dish. And I'm not thrilled with that piece right there, so I'm just going to discard it. Here we go. And these herbs were all rinsed ahead of time. So there we go. Now, even though I'm going to put this in the food processor, I just want to give it a little bit of a slice. Break the pieces down a little bit, especially that rosemary, because rosemary tends to be kind of stemmy, sticky. And if you don't give it a little bit of a slice, then you may end up with whole rosemary leaves in your stuffing, because a food processor can only do so much. Okay, there we go. And now I'm going to put that in with our breadcrumbs. Again, you can do this without a food processor. You'll just have to cut the herbs smaller. You'll just have to really mince them up. And, the same with the breadcrumbs. There we go. And now what I just want to add is a little bit of the black pepper and salt. So here's our teaspoon of salt. That's good. And our sprinkling of black pepper. Okay, and now what I'm going to do is just use our handy dandy food processor to mix all these ingredients together. So you can see, I think you can see, yeah, you can see. You can see that the breadcrumbs and the herbs are mixing together quite nicely. See that? And kind of give it a little bit of a rotate here and there. Again, this is not a high-tech food processor. This is within the reach of everybody. Okay, and that was about a minute of processing in this food processor, and look what you end up with. That's a nice breadcrumb. You get your kind of breadcrumb dusting, and you have little small pieces, and you have herbs and salt and pepper all mixed in with it. So let's just put that right in here. There we go. And there you go. You can see what the breadcrumb mixture looks like up close. And now I'm going to meet you over at the stove. Okay, so this pan has been preheating over medium heat. I'm going to add our butter, get that all melted down. Okay, so the butter's melted. Now here comes our chicken broth. Okay, get that nice and warmed up. And once I start to see the chicken broth start to simmer with the butter, then we'll add the other ingredients. Okay, there's our simmer. Starting to see bubbles forming in the chicken broth and butter. And now all I want to do is add our breadcrumbs and just stir them in. Now I don't have to get too crazy about this stirring it. I'm just trying to moisturize the breadcrumbs a little bit because this is going to bake. I also didn't add any more liquid than that amount of butter and chicken broth because I don't like mushy breadcrumbs. I don't like mushy stuffing. So look at that. It's mixing up nicely. You can see that all of the bread is nice and moisturized. Just giving that a nice stir. Oh, this smells delicious. Okay, there we go. So let's spray our glass baking pan, or metal if you're using that, with some of our non-stick canola oil spray. You can also, put a little layer of butter down there, anything to keep the pork chops from sticking. So here we go. So there's our pork chops coming up. And then let's spoon our stuffing mix right on top of the pork chops. And it's okay if it runs off to the side because you'll want to scoop that goodness out of the dish anyways. It's that tasty. So I'm putting some on the top, I'm letting it run around the sides. Wow, if you could smell this. It's so herb rich. I guarantee people will want to eat the stuffing that falls off the sides. It's that good. Okay, so the pork chops are covered. And again, I'm going to put it in the oven that has been preheated at 400. These are going on the middle rack uncovered for 40 minutes. And I'll see you then. Okay, so 40 minutes later, here we are. We have our baked stuffed pork chops. It's all done, and it's ready to eat. Now, what you want to do at this point is slice into one, make sure it's cooked all the way through, that there's no pink meat at all in the middle of it. Or if you have a meat thermometer, the pork chops should have reached at least 160 degrees. So congratulations, look at what you just did. You just made delicious baked stuffed pork chops with this homemade herby stuffing. Oh man, you should smell it here. It's just rich in all of these herbs and that nice savory pork smell. Just wonderful. If you like this recipe, please visit my website, stepbystepchef.com. There you're going to find dozens of recipes and videos for other delicious meals. You'll find breakfast, lunch, and dinner. So please visit stepbystepchef.com. I'm Larry Richardson. I am your step-by-step chef. I'll see you in the next episode.